Hello, my name is Anja Milosavljević, and I'm going to be your host today. Today, my guest is Anežka, and she comes from Czech Republic. She's a very enthusiastic young lady, very strong, very powerful, and she's how should I say, curious person with different interests, and she is very successful in all those different interests she has. So Anežka, hi, hello, how are you?
Hi, thanks for the introduction. I'm doing good. Well, I don't know if I'm as successful as you described. I'm certainly enthusiastic about stuff, but I'm not sure about the extent of the success yet. But
well, for me, it is because we know each other for some time, and we spent even some time together on a small trip last year. So we get to know each other a little better. And when I say that you're successful, I really think that, because I know your past endeavors. I know the things that you worked in the past, so I can strongly say that you are successful. So can you tell us something about yourself? Some small introduction, like what is your educational background? What are your interests? What are some of your future plans? And what is your main focus in this moment?
right. Okay. So as it was already said, I'm quite multi-interested in many things. And well, I studied first economics and politics, then I studied local economic development, and that was something that I wanted to work on in my future. But after I finished studying, I got into a startup which was doing sustainable protein made from insects. I stayed there for 3 years. I was in charge of developing new products. We made lots of new unprecedented snacks from insects, like protein bars, protein crackers, then even pasta, protein shake, lots of different items. And then I considered moving ahead, changing my career a bit. And now I finally made the step after a long time of decision. And I decided to do two things. So one of them is doing my own startup. So I'm starting a very new thing with my friend. And the other thing is that I decided to join a large corporation, because I still feel like I lack lots of skills in many different areas. And I still feel that the big corporations know how to do stuff. That was one of my biggest fears in the startup, that I'm actually missing on something. So now I'm trying to do both things, like learn how to do it well and also do something of my own. So that's for me. And well, and also in terms of hobbies and stuff, I like nature, reading, summer camps with kids, and reading and just being curious in general.
Mm-hmm. I know. Well, when we met last year in September in Warsaw on a summer school for new product development, I was so happy to meet you. I was so delighted to hear that something that was my idea, and people here in Serbia looked at me like I'm a crazy person when I tell them that we can make products with alternative sources of protein. And then I met you, and you said that you work for a startup and that you're using cricket flowers for snacks and pasta. And I even tried the snacks, and they are perfect. So how is it to develop a new product that contains something, ingredient that is totally new for the market? Like, what were your problems? Did you have problems with the, I don't know, the state, the regulations, with the people who are basically consumers of your goods?
I would say there were problems in all those areas that you just described. So for the state problems, so it was legal in the European Union to work with insects, but each country had its own legislation. So we were working from the Czech Republic, but officially we were based in the UK, because when the company started in 2016, I think UK was one of the few countries where you could actually work and produce and, work with insects and then sell the goods. And still, even today, there's different legislation in different countries. So I think in Austria, you can only sell whole insects, like whole grasshopper or cricket, but you cannot sell products made from insect components, so like cricket flour. And or in France, there's also different legislation. So that was a big problem. And we, as the startup Essence, we actually made a lot of progress on this in the Czech Republic, because we pushed on the Ministry of Agriculture, and we actually made them approve of some clause which made it perfectly legal to work with insect flour in the Czech Republic. Before that, it was semi-legal. It wasn't illegal, but it was quite unclear if you could do it or not, and which authorities should approve of it. But then we really worked with them. We showed them that it could be safe, that it could work well. And after that, they approved it. So now it's perfectly legal. And then you also mentioned customers, of course. So that was the biggest problem, I would say. Because for many people, even today in 2020, if they hear insect snacks, it's what is it? And they don't really want to. They don't want to try. So we had to convince them. And my experience was that you have to make them try the first time because they are afraid, and then you break the barrier. And the second time they remember it was something tasty, it was a good snack, and they want to continue eating it. So that was the customer problem. Then the biggest problem maybe was the buyer in the shop problem. So like the buyers of supermarkets or the people who actually purchase goods for retail chains. That was a big issue, because imagine there's this one person who decides if your bars or your other goods will get sold in a whole chain. So this person is practically making the decision for the thousands of individual people who would buy it later. And so you have to convince this one lady or this one guy that it's a good product, so that it can get to the people. If you don't convince them, then maybe you will not get into a certain chain and you will not be able to offer it to thousands of people. So that was a huge challenge. Then also in the beginning, especially, there was a huge challenge with working with suppliers and producers, because we never had any factory of our own. Sense is a company that is a marketing and sales company which owns the ideas, the recipes, but it has some other producers which do it for them. And in the beginning, there were very few factories that were willing to work with cricket flour. And the first reason is because it's an allergen. It's the same like crustacean. So they were afraid of the allergen. And the second thing is that they generally didn't trust this thing and they didn't want to get involved with it. So there was a lot of convincing, and that's why the first producers were maybe not of the best quality. And then that was one of my biggest tasks in the company, to change the producers for version 2, let's say, to improve them, find new ones. And it was getting better as the company was more known and as the whole trend was more known in the world, because more companies of bigger scale were willing to cooperate with us. So that was one challenge. Then, of course, there was the challenge of product development, because in the company there was no one who would have any experience with it. So at the beginning, it was the 2 founders who worked on it together with a professional chef who had some experience with cooking with insects, but mostly like frying grasshoppers, again, like not this insect powder thing. And then I got in charge of the product development. But as I said, I studied economics and politics and then economic development. I had no idea how this is done. So it was like trial and error and common logic and just like trying to find ways. Then I went for this summer school on product development where we met, which was organized by the European Institute of Technology. And that was actually quite helpful. And this organization is trying to do lots of initiatives and lots of activities to support people who are working in the agro-food sector in Europe. And many of those activities were free and, I would say, helpful. So that gave me some direction. But still, it was mostly like trying what works, what doesn't. And I tried to contact lots of different co-packers, lots of different suppliers, and ask them, how would you go about developing this product? Because sometimes they had more technical info than I had. And big part of this...
Sorry, can I stop you? Were they willing to share those kind of information with you, because it's kind of a problematic area, because you are sharing some insights that are basically very important for a company. Were they willing to share it with you?
I would say they were in those instances where they knew what to do, but sometimes they had no clue either, so they weren't quite sure what to do. So big part of that was doing customer research and asking the customers first, what do you want from this product? then they told us, oh, we want a cracker which should be crispy, it should be quite thin, it should cost, I don't know, under €2, it should have this and this. Then we made some sense of it, and we went to the producer and we told them, oh, we want this and this. And sometimes they would say, oh, but we don't know how to put the cricket powder in it. And then we would help them, because we knew the magic about the cricket powder, and they knew the magic about making crackers or making bars or making something. So it was a big compromise of like putting those two pieces of knowledge together. And in some instances, it still didn't work out. So let's say we were trying to make some like yogurt or smoothie or wet products that would be stored in fridges. And so far, there was no successful result, because we didn't know how it worked. They didn't know either. There were some experiments, but never successful.
So are those experiments expensive? So that's the reason why you didn't go further with that? Or you just decided it's not worth the waste of time, money, resources to do something that is maybe not, maybe the market is not ready for that? What was the reason to just give up?
Well, if I would be in the position to protect the company sense, I would say it was very expensive and we couldn't carry on. And that would make it seem like it was something very difficult and very, very expensive, and something that not everyone could do. But since I'm not working there anymore, and since I want to help some of the listeners of this podcast, I have to admit it wasn't expensive at all. It was mostly the experimentation like you would do in your kitchen. We would just like mix stuff, then sometimes just observe how it behaves. In some cases, we've sent it to a laboratory, so they would do some microbiology on it. But in most cases, it wasn't about the money. It was mostly about finding a company who had some knowledge in it, who was willing to do it. So mostly like convincing people, you want to do it, please do it with us. And then it was about priorities, of course, because we had lots of different ideas. We had ideas about like these wet snacks that would be stored in fridges. But at the same time, we were still finishing the protein drink. And lots of different things going on. And then there was a big focus on Asia, and they were asking for very different snacks. So in the end, I think it was dropped, or rather postponed, because it didn't bring any results, and there was a big pressure to do some other things which were more successful.
Okay. So what do you think about new product development? What will be the stages? What will be the steps you have to do to develop new product? And what do you generally think about innovations?
That's a very relevant question for what I'm doing at this very moment, for the new company that we are establishing. And, well, I think most people see it as something very complicated and something that has to be done in labs by food engineers, or like, if it's not food, then other engineers. Most people think that it's something quite specific. My personal opinion is that it's not, that practically everyone can try developing something of their own interest. Like, no matter if it's food, for some people it might be, I don't know, toys. For other people it might be writing a book or whatever. But there are several approaches. So you could either like copy stuff. You can always look at what's in the market and make it better. You can, that's what we do. You can ask the customers. So again, in this new company, the first thing that we did was that we made a big customer research. We asked some people who were in our target group, what do you want from such a product? What are your expectations? Then they told us what they want, and now we are trying to make this. And there would be people who would say that this is the wrong approach, that this would never bring the new, I don't know what they say, it would never bring the new Apple or whatever, because you're always asking about categories that people already have in mind. So I guess if you want to be really innovative, you have to come up with something brilliant and just put it in the market. But from my experience, the better way is to ask people, what do you want? And then, of course, you bring some innovation, because if you have some experience in the market or in the field, you can upgrade the ideas that they have. But I would say it's much better to ask people, what do you want? And then the missing puzzle for me and for many of you listeners will be the technical knowledge, because I didn't study food. Maybe you didn't study the area that you're interested in. So I would say try to find experts, try to find people who already do it. And you would be surprised that most of them are really willing to talk. Like I already said, the producer that we worked with before, very few of them were afraid to talk to us. Most people will just tell you, yeah, you know, this wouldn't work, or yeah, this is a brilliant idea, let's try. Most people are quite open. So if you have an idea, just call them, or, well, try to have a meeting if it's possible, and confront them with your idea. And most people would be willing to share knowledge. And then, of course, you can use Google, which sounds obvious, but in practice, I don't really find it that useful, because it's like lots of passive information. I always find it easier just to call someone or ask people who already do something similar. And actually, what's interesting is that through this European Institute of Technology, we have been able to enroll in a different program, which is only intended for women. It's called EWA, and I don't know, sorry about the name. It's something like Women Entrepreneurs. I don't know. I mixed up all. I mixed the name all up. But it's a program intended for women in business, in agribusiness and food. And they have been able to give us a mentor from another startup in food here in Prague. And this guy, he could be seen as our competitor in a way, but still he's very much willing to share all his experiences. So that's another proof that people are willing to share what they have gone through. So I would say, don't be afraid to go and talk to people who already do it. And then, again, don't be afraid to reach out for these programs, because most of them are for free, or they even give you some money, and they can help you. They can give you some direction. And I don't want to make this sound like I'm doing an advertisement for them. But
no, but it's nice. I'm surprised, like many people, when I went to Warsaw last year, many people asked me, where did you find this stuff? And I told them, well, on Google. I just basically typed the keywords and the programs just came up. So I randomly picked several, and I was admitted to this program for new product development. So you just have to look for them. They're on somewhere. So you just have to find them. Yeah. Can you tell us? Sorry.
Yeah. I just want to say that there are many of them. I actually spotted several other ones, and I guess in most countries there would be. And this EIT one, they have several programs for lots of different stages. So still there is a lot of money available to startups, and very early startups, even people with ideas, not even project, but like individuals who have ideas. There's lots of money going into this. Still there they have the funds. So I would say, don't be afraid and search for them.
I agree. That's how I've ended in Warsaw. So is it a business secret, or you can tell us what is your new business about? Or share something that you can share.
Yeah, sure. It's not a secret. It's just at a quite early stage, so there isn't much that you could check at this moment. But we are going to do a website where you can mix your own superfood drinks. So we will be selling single ingredients, then pre-made mixes, which will be tasty, and that's a specific parameter for superfoods, because I don't know how familiar you are with superfoods, but most of them, like spirulina, taste disgusting and people hate it. So we are coming up with recipes that taste good and people will want to consume them. And the third function, which is the most special one, is that you will be able to mix your own mix on the website, so that you don't have to buy 10 different bags and then do it at home. So you can buy just one personalized mixture that will contain, 2% of spirulina, 25% of lucuma, 50% of banana, whatever you like. So that's the idea.
Oh, that's good. Are you going to outsource the producers of the ingredients, or are you just going to be a marketing and selling company, or are you going to have your own production facilities?
We will not have our own facility, at least in the beginning, because I also have a full-time job in the corporation that I joined, and my co-founder is in the same situation. She also has to do other work, and we don't even have the money and the capacity. So we will be outsourcing, because that's the only thing we can afford. But what we want to do for the future is that we want to work closely with the suppliers of the ingredients, and we want to only work with ethical suppliers. I don't want to say that they have to be organic or that they have to be fair trade, because these are only stamps which companies have to pay for. Some of them could be ethical even without these particular stamps. But we want to make sure that we follow the processes of our suppliers, so that we can make sure that the products that we do are all ethical. because we know that with some superfoods, it tends to be a bit dodgy because they are made in very exotic countries where there's a lot of child labor, a lot of weird practices that we don't want to support, we don't want to be connected with. So we want to work closely with suppliers. Then we will probably have someone who will help us with the actual preparation of the mixes and putting them in the bags or boxes or whatever packaging we will select. But that's not such a big issue because it will probably be someone here in Prague where work has to be done ethically, or there are lots of regulations, so you can't underpay people. You can't really employ someone who's under I don't know 16. Like kids can't do it. So
yeah.
Yeah.
Why is it important? I know, like, that is a part of your core values. Why is it important to be to cooperate with ethical producer? Why for you and for your company?
Well, it has two aspects. One is that it's extremely important for me. The other one is that it's reflecting what people want, actually. So I would say there is a rise of this new awareness that people started thinking about where their food comes from. And for me personally, I'm a vegetarian for maybe 15 or 16 years, and I don't want to contribute to cruelty to animals and even more to cruelty to people. So I would say it's a core value for me. And maybe it's because I realized that in many ways I'm privileged because I was born into a relatively rich country where we have enough of everything and where there's peace. But I also realized that not everyone was so privileged, that many people live in terrible conditions and they have to work long hours, they don't have fair pay. There's lots of issues. So I don't want to make it worse for them. The other way, I want to do something which is meaningful and which helps other people to improve their lives as well. Because, in general, that's the core value maybe. I believe in meritocracy, and I believe that if you work hard, your life situation should improve. And as such, I want to create conditions where the work that other people can do for our company can improve their lives. So if they work hard, if they do good products, if they do good ingredients or whatever, then I think they should get fair pay and their lives should improve as well.
That's nice and that's noble, and I think and I hope that the future economy is going to really be based on fair trade and on ethical production. Fine. What other core values are important for you when you think about developing a new business or developing a new product?
So with products, I think it's all about doing something that you can sign under. So doing something that you believe in the quality of. So I think you should always be convinced that it's a good product and that you're not just selling people something quite bad just for the money of it. I think you should always be able to stand for it and say, this is something I would buy myself. So I would have some ethical issues if I was working for a company that did something that I personally wouldn't like to buy. So this is quite important. And then it's this ethical argument. And then the other thing is, of course, sustainability. So I wouldn't like to work on something which is making the environment worse off. So we will try to be climate neutral if possible. Of course, there are lots of challenges, lots of practicalities, which will be difficult, especially in the beginning. But we are certainly aiming for recyclable packaging and for a reduction of waste wherever possible. So one of the ideas that we are actually exploring is that some of the ingredients that comes into our mixes would be made from those ugly vegetables and fruits, which are not sold in supermarkets because they are too ugly, they have weird shapes or they are too small, too big. And so we aim to be buying these and then having them converted into powders because we are working with powders, and then working with those because they are practically seen as waste. So that's an idea of how we could be somehow more sustainable.
More sustainable. Yes, I spoke to a friend. She is from Italy, Enrica. She also participated in this project, and she said that basically no one is 100% sustainable. You know, you're always going to leave some kind of a footprint. You're going to use some material that, I don't know, cannot be recycled or whatever, but you can try to just lower it to the lowest level.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, I would say even living and breathing is the most unsustainable thing you can actually do. And if you wanted to limit your impact, then kill yourself. Like, that would be the most sustainable thing we could do, because we ourselves produce lots of gases, we consume lots of food, we have huge impact in terms of water and stuff. But of course, the core value, which is probably even above sustainability, is life itself and sustaining life. So I would say within the limits of staying alive, healthy, and having enough food for ourselves and having enough other resources that we need, then we are all responsible for trying, at least. And of course, it will not be perfect. It's very difficult and very, very challenging, especially for small companies, but even for big ones. And that's another topic, because I also started working for a corporation, one of the major ones in food in the world. And they also have some issues with sustainability, but they are trying, which is a good thing. But yeah, we are all responsible. So I would say it's always worth trying. And probably with packaging, it will be difficult, because let's say there are some, you can have some materials which are technically recyclable, but in many places they are not recycled, because maybe your town or your city doesn't have the recycling plant. So for example, for like compostable packaging, it seems to be nice and recyclable, but many towns in Europe don't recycle it because they don't have the compost plants. So there are always issues, but I think even people who think about it already contribute, because they make lots of small changes, lots of small decisions every day, and maybe that's also helpful. But we never know.
Well, you can always try, step by step, change by change, and then on the huge level that can really make an impact or change something. Okay, can you tell us something about state of entrepreneurship in Czech Republic? And please, if I know that you were also in Berlin and in Prague, so if you can make kind of I don't know, just to see what the state of entrepreneurship or startup scene, startup ecosystems look in those two cities.
Well, I don't really have that much knowledge about the one in Berlin. Okay. But I can speak about the Czech one, and I would say it's thriving, and there probably wasn't as much of it in the beginning. But yesterday I read on the news that there was some European competition for the fastest companies in the tech sector, and they chose 50 of them from Europe, and something like 20 or even more than 20 of those fastest growing tech companies were from Czech Republic. So we have lots of hugely growing tech companies. And that's perfect. That's really good. And I think it reflects the state of entrepreneurship here. I would say there are lots of tech companies in here, lots of people doing IT stuff, doing security and the related disciplines. I personally found it quite difficult to do something else in the beginning, because when I finished studying, I wanted to stay in London first, because there are lots of different startups in lots of different fields. And then when I moved here, there was this company that I worked for, which worked with the alternative protein. But to be honest, there were not many other startups in those other fields. So that was difficult, but I would say it's slowly changing, because now there are lots of other things, and we have sustainable startups in underwear for like women's periods. We have lots of things in agri-food now, thanks to that European program as well. And new ecosystems are arising. And I think it's also thanks due to particular people who are doing a lot. So there are people who are doing startup programs, accelerators, who are doing conferences, and that helps a lot. And I think that could be a good message for the people from the other countries where the ecosystem isn't really strong, that even if you maybe start your own initiative, which might seem quite small in the beginning, maybe you will produce 1 or 2 startups, but those startups will generate 20 people, and those 20 people in 5 years' time will have 5 different companies or 50 different companies. So I would say it's worth starting somewhere, and then it will produce other things. And another proof for this is the company where I worked since. So when I started, there weren't very many sustainable food companies or startups in the country. And now when I left, I can say that there are already 3 other companies which are somehow made from that company. So it's still alive, and the people who already left the company established 3 new ones. which
Are
are
they
in
also related to alternative sources of protein, or are they
no,
just no?
no. There are different
Perfect.
startups. So one is about
Perfect.
fertility, then our one, and then other things. So it's all different things. But I think if you start spreading the mentality that people can start somewhere and that they can establish their own projects, it will grow and it will spread.
So do you think that there must be I don't know, a state or a government that is standing behind, like supporting those initiatives? Or do you think it's just basically that individuals have to cooperate and make that ecosystem that is good for startups?
I don't think it's about state. It would probably be much better if the state helped somehow, but to be honest, I don't think I've seen any help from the state so far. Like, not really. All the help which we ever received was from the European Union. So that's something above the state, and that was hugely beneficial. But the Czech state as such, I think they have some programs for startups, but everyone's always laughing about them because they are ridiculous. Like, they don't meet the expectations, and they are very weird. There was one program for small grants, which was awarded from European structural funds and distributed by the city magistrate, by the authority. And it was actually so bad that in the first round people participated, but in the second one they had very small expectations of it, because the paperwork took over a year, and they didn't themselves hold to the deadlines which they've set. So it took them another year to evaluate those projects, and they were very slow, and there were a few scandals involved in it. So I would say the state part isn't very functional in this. Maybe they're trying, but I don't see it as successful so far. But the European part is great. That was helpful so far. And then I think it's up to individuals or networks of individuals who are trying. And sometimes you can see some contributions by either universities who are trying to get involved, but that's again because of European money, because some of the European funds are structured so that startups have to cooperate with universities. So that's helpful. And then sometimes you would see some corporations that have programs for startups. So that might be helpful. But mostly I think it's down to the individual networks, which are run by individuals who are enthusiastic and who want to help.
What do you think about the fact that, I don't know how it's in Czech Republic, but I strongly believe that there must be a connection between, I don't know, university, and some tech parks, startups, and you have to connect people with the business background, with the engineers, with whatever. So you have to make a group of people that can, in one network, that can help each other develop a business. Like maybe I have a business background, but I'm not an engineer, and I have an idea, but I don't know how to connect with people. I don't have no one in my network who can connect me with someone. How is it different in Czech, in Prague? Do you have those kind of a connection between those dots that can basically produce a product that can be scalable?
I think it's again down to the European projects, probably, because the way that they are structured is that usually it's on one side it's the entrepreneurial individual who applies for the project. So it would be me or you or another group, and they apply, and then in many of those projects they can collaborate with a technical or research university, and that's how the technical people get involved. And then they get some other colleagues or some other people who are involved from different fields. But I have the feeling that it would be very difficult for the authority, state, or whoever to assemble the teams, because the people have to somehow find their own ways. But I think it's quite good if they incentivize with money all the other people, like universities, to get involved if they have a reason. Because otherwise, if an entrepreneur just walked to a university, it would be impossible to get connected, because they would say, oh, we have too many projects going on, you don't have any money. And their structure is also really complicated, because they have certain deadlines to meet, and they are working in different calendar years, and the projects can only start at certain time, and it's all quite complicated. So I think it's good if it's supported, that you as an entrepreneur can join a program that helps you to get connected. But I don't think that anyone can do it externally, like in terms of walking in and saying you and you will be a team and you will do a project tomorrow.
I know that would be strange, basically. Now, tell me, how did this pandemic and this Corona and COVID, how did it affect you? Did it affect you? Did it change your life? I think that you actually started this business during this period. Yeah. Can you share with us? Can you tell us how was that for you? Did it change you?
So I think it changed the lives of everyone here in the Czech Republic, because for us it's actually quite cruel, because we have a curfew that you have to be at home after 9 p.m. in the evening, so you cannot go outside after 9. Then only shops with food are open. No other shops are open, and the schools only opened this week for some children, not for all of them. So it's very isolated, and all the offices have to keep people at home if they can. Of course, like if you work in a factory, it's impossible. But if you work for a company which can do it, then they have to keep you at home. And so we are spending a lot of time in isolation. And I guess that's the same for all around Europe. For some people it's worse, for some people it's better. But my personal experience is that I've been sitting on this chair for maybe half a year now, or like many months. And it's kind of difficult, but it's also one of the reasons why we started with the new project, because I was sitting at home for a long time, and my friend contacted me, and I felt like I really wanted something new to start. It wasn't that I would have the extra time. It was more like there was no excitement, because I was only spending time here. Because normally I do lots of sports. I spend a lot of time in the nature, and I go to lots of events. I visit people. But now there wasn't so much of it. And I felt like I needed some new project. I needed something exciting. So when she contacted me that she had this idea, I was like, yeah, let's do it. Let's start with something exciting, because then it brings new people, new experiences, and like new things that come. So that was for me. And so far we've been very lucky, because we are doing a project which is in the food sector. And I would say food is probably going to be sold even if there's an economic crisis, even if people get slightly lower incomes. And it's a question if it will impact them so much that they will cut their spending on the luxury food, like superfoods, which are of course not a necessity. So that's a question. So we will see. But I would say we are in the lucky sector, because if we started, I don't know, an app for tourism, we would probably not be able to continue. So that was a lucky factor. But again, I think we are on the privileged side here, because neither of us suffered financially, because I managed to start a new job in that corporation as well. And that was very lucky, because lots of people who are entrepreneurs, who are working on their own personal business licenses, who are like not getting salaries, but who are invoicing their clients, they are having tough times. And I've read the statistic that 1/3 of these people, of these small business people, had their incomes lowered, or they like suffered financially, basically. So that's the numbers, and it's maybe going to get worse. And there was some state support. The state is trying to give them some money, but it's more of a joke. It's not so much. I know that they can't do much. Of course, it's paid from taxpayers' money, and it's all expensive and complicated. But practically, I think many people are going through tough times, and it will get much worse. And I feel really sorry for all the restaurant and pub owners around here, because they can't open. And I know that every single day of being closed costs them a lot of money. And now I'm not even sure how many weeks or days it's been since things have been closed, but I think it's maybe like 5 weeks now since the big closure of everything here. And so like 5 weeks of no sales for them. So that's quite harsh. So I feel really sorry for them. And I'm very lucky not to be touched so much. For me, it was mostly like a creative spark. For them, it was maybe a destructive thing. But, maybe the destruction will bring new ideas, or as they will want or need to cope with the new situation, maybe they will come up with new ideas if the environment allows for it.
I agree. I think that it's basically very tough time, and it's very challenging, but you can use your spare time or the time you have now to think of some new ideas and to just...
I think this is also specific to the situation, because let's say now I'm not quite stressed because I have another job and I know that I have some income coming. But there was a time when I was looking for a new job and I was a bit stressed, and I really found that it was blocking any creative energy. And I imagine that for these people who have their businesses bankrupting, that for them, maybe they have all days free, they have lots of time on their hands, they might have lots of resources as well. But I imagine that the stress could be so strong that it doesn't really allow them to think or do anything, that they are just paralyzed because they don't know what the future for their business and family will be. So that they can't really think. So that can be quite tough. And I think we should all admit it, because usually we are like, yeah, just stand, do something new, stand on your knees. Oh, that was a bad sentence, but like just try to come up with something new. But we don't realize that even the stress factor or this suffering could be so paralyzing that many people are not able to do that yet. Maybe they will be later on when it stabilizes a bit.
Yeah, I know. I agree. It is, as you said, we are in a lucky industry. I'm also in food industry. So I know how it was for me and how it was for some friends of mine who run their own businesses. Sometimes I was even ashamed to say how well I'm doing because I see them closing their businesses. So it was hard. Fine. What would be your message? Can you share something with us? Like you said what your hobbies are, but can you tell us what do you read? Can you I don't know, share some title that was very interesting or helpful for you? Because I know I as I said, we spent some time together, and I know that you are working on your personal development, on your body development, on your business development. So there are probably some resources that you can share with us and share some message to the world.
Right. So message. I don't know if I'm in a position to give messages, but probably if I had to share one thing with everyone who wants to start or who's not even thinking about starting, would be go ahead and try it. And don't be afraid. And it sounds like a stupid cliche and it doesn't really help. But there are lots of initiatives that can help you, lots of people who want to help you, and there are lots of resources still. It might be different after a crisis, it might change, but I would say still it's available. The other thing is that as women, we are quite not as privileged as men in many aspects of business and life and such, but in terms of these startup and other support initiatives, the European Union is trying to do a lot to counterbalance the common trend of women being disprivileged. So there is a lot of money available to women only. So if you are a girl, especially, or a woman, not a man, I would say your chances of starting and getting help are quite good at this time. So see it as your benefit rather than your disadvantage, because lots of people are trying to counterbalance the common trend. So go ahead and just go and apply for those programs that are intended for women. And then in terms of book recommendations, I read a very good book recently. It's called Girl, Woman and Other. It's written by, let me check, Bernardine Evaristo. And it's a story, a modern story, which is happening in the UK. And it's describing destinies of several, maybe 10, 12, I'm not sure how many exactly, women with different destinies. Some of them are heterosexual, some of them are homosexual, some of them are young or old, some of them are native from Britain, some of them are immigrants. And it's very inspiring in the sense that it shows how different people can be, and it also shows how people can change their attitude. So there's a story of someone who's really racist, and then they discover that maybe they also have some ancestors who have been black or different. So I would recommend this for all people interested in the topic of gender, different sexual modes, and race as well. So that's interesting. And then my other favorite book of this year was, and let me check. It's written by, I can't find it, but it's written by Madeline Miller. Yeah, I have no idea how it's pronounced because I only read it as a text. I never listened to any audio files related to it. But it's called Circe. It's spelled Circe, and it's about a Greek goddess. Maybe I completely pronounced it wrong. I'm not sure. But check it out. It's by Madeleine Miller. And she has rewritten part of Greek mythology through the perspective of one goddess. So it's like seen through the eyes of a woman who is unprivileged as well, and she doesn't have very good skills like all the other Greek gods had. She's not very beautiful, she's not very smart, she's not very anything. She's just very average, and she's very much disliked by everyone. So it's a good story in the sense that it gives you a lot of hope that even if you're the one on the side, maybe you can find your special ability, because she discovers that she's a witch. And then she starts to take her own perspectives, and she revenges all the other females, and she starts being powerful on her own. So I think that's a great book on female empowerment, and also it's good because it's Greek mythology, but it's seen through modern eyes, or like it's written in modern language at least, if not modern eyes. So I would recommend that one.
Thank you, Anežka. Thank you so much. Thank you for accepting my invitation. I know it was we couldn't find the time and the date, but thank you for finding time to participate in this.
Well, thank you so much for inviting me.
As I said, you have so many things to say because you have many different layers of your personality, and you can share different stories. And when I said that you are successful, by the end of this conversation, I hope that you also see that you are successful. So,
well, I hope that I will be able to talk to you in 1 or 2 years from now, and that I will be able to show some numbers which will prove that I'm successful, like in terms of sales of the new product. So that would actually mean success to me if I was able to show a spreadsheet saying, "Oh, look, we sold so much. There's so much profit that we made." That would be a success in my eyes. So let's hope that in a year or two.
I keep my fingers crossed.
Thank you. Thank you.
You were listening Anežka from Czech Republic. This was Mondopreneur podcast. And if you like it, you can follow us on social media networks like Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, and you can find us on YouTube and most of the audio platforms that are available. So stay good, stay in good health, and see you in a week.